Editor-in-Chief Alex O'Neill.
Editor at large Jarrett Green.
Video editor Scott White.
So
Heard you
It's
guys.
like I don't have anybody's name to say.
Heard you guys are interested in a little game called Mortal Shell.
Yeah.
A
The most
what they call
enthused, yeah, I could give. Yeah.
a what they call a Souls-like.
Yeah.
One might say this is maybe the most Souls-like of the Souls-likes.
Really? Okay.
I think, especially after 2011, when people were copying the style and making their own, they take lots of steps to try not to be a dark fantasy experience. And Mortal Shell was like, what if we just did Dark Souls
You know what?
in appearance?
I'm getting those vibes right now.
As you can see now, what you'll see in this video, unlike other viewpoints, are a bunch of pre-taped things I've recorded while playing, because playing this game and talking about it at the same time just feels like a mistake.
No, this is smart. Yeah.
those are very small damage numbers. At that point,
Yes.
I wonder, what's the point?
Yeah.
So I'll be honest with you,
Oh.
they are off by default because they don't matter. I turned them on thinking they would matter, but the more I've played this game, I realized damage numbers are kind of just for funsies.
Look at
They
you
don't mean a whole
role-playing
lot.
as Santana.
Yeah.
The loot is really good. Chief strat is get the loot and play as much as possible.
What does the loot do?
The loot is, I mean, it plays music, but more importantly, it uses it as a lure. Since there is like one range weapon and it's hard to get, the easiest way to sort of lure people out of the patrols they're on is to play a loot nearby. And they'll hear the music, get very ornery about it, come find out who did it.
That's actually really cool.
Turns out it's you, and then you kill them. Got no good footage of me luring with the loot, but just know it's there.
I also really like how
there's-
you say the word lore. It's just
You like that?
you gotta you gotta je ne sais quoi to, you know what I mean? So
This is me getting murdered by a hammer
yeah,
dude.
Jesus. That guy's brutal.
What's the word say?
So I don't know.
Moistum
Moistum.
imprisonante?
Something about moistness.
Moist
for-
El
it's-
Presidente.
It's definitely 4 words that are maybe fake Latin that I haven't found a translation or like a write down of, so I couldn't tell you. And the only time you see those words are when you die. So I've never seen those 4 words anywhere else, so I couldn't tell you what it says.
Maybe it says like freed from your mortal coil, you know?
Probably something like that.
Which I'm pretty sure
Something nice and clever.
a Dark Souls like has said that when you die.
I'm sure
believe.
Dark Souls has said that.
Yeah.
That very line. I think where this game is different and significantly so, and in a way that makes it really worth checking out, is the combat. I find the world to be interesting, but maybe not. I don't find it to be as compelling as Dark Souls, and I'm one of those people that don't really necessarily find the Dark Souls world that compelling either.
Sure.
And this feels like a definitely trying to put on its skin and pretend it is. The Dark Souls, trying to tell the story in a very Miyazaki way, and I don't know that it succeeds necessarily.
Is it so like the loot is kind of an interesting variation on that Soulsian-ness? Are there any other notable kind of variations they add to it?
What do you mean, like gameplay wise, or
Yeah,
sort of
mechanically,
like
or
game-wise?
even
So
narratively?
mechanically is where most of the difference is. It's still very stamina timing, sort of heavy combat. Very risk reward. You kind of got to commit to your attacks, and everything here is lethal. The difference, though, is there are very few RPG elements in this. What you'll notice is there is no, there's no initial classes. There's no leveling up particular stats.
Oh.
You can enhance your weapons, of which there are 4 different kinds. The weapons can be enhanced. You can just, add +1 through 5 like you normally could for a Dark Souls weapon, or you can enhance them with particular.
That girl just turned you to
abilities.
rock, dude. That was messed up.
I turned to do my my Kakuna situation there.
You pardon.
Every weapon has special abilities you can unlock by finding particular items and upgrading them. But that is about as much as you get as far as like scaling up power is concerned. For the most part, you are what you are. And I don't know if any of you've played the Super Nintendo game Illusion of Gaia.
I have.
So in Illusion of Gaia, your character, who's like a high school kid, gains his power by sort of inhabiting the spirit of heroes and turns into like other people. And when he turns into other people, he gets unique powers when adventuring on the Zelda-like sort of platforming levels. This reminds me a lot of that because you start out as kind of like this creepy skin thing, but
Same.
you find what's called shells, which are, I guess, once human people who died. When you inhabit their shell, you gain some of their memories. And how that translates mechanically is every one of the shells you inhabit, which there are 4, all have unique sort of statistic layouts and potential like passive abilities they can learn.
You know what this is starting to sound a lot like, Scott? Code Vein, dude.
Okay, Code Vein's a good. That's actually pretty good analogy here for something more modern.
Yeah, totally.
Who I'm playing now is a guy named Teal. Teal is kind of like the quick, more agile guy. He has lots of stamina, which is that green bar there. The lowest life in the game, which is the red bar on top. His dodge, he can actually teleport a short distance.
Whoa.
Making him invulnerable the entire time.
Like
super cool.
Smoke roll or whatever from Dark Souls.
Yeah. The
it's
ninja
like
flip.
it's the smoke roll, which is basically like the Nightcrawler like poof. So what just happened to me there is when you lose your all your hit points the first time, you get knocked out of your shell. Whoa. That little white thing is what you actually are.
You are a skin thing.
And if you are hit again, you just straight up die. But if you can get back into your shell before that happens, you're basically get a second life.
That only happens once?
It can only happen once per, like, bonfire rest, if you will.
Okay.
Now, there are ways to extend it. There's an item that allows you to get another retry, basically. But they're rare and few and far between. There's also some other ways to manipulate around it, but, you gotta get kind of funky with that.
Yeah. Wow, this is really different than I expected it would be, honestly.
Yeah, I was expecting more RPG-ish elements.
Yeah.
Exactly. Like it's very much like a narrow focus, smaller scale Dark Souls.
Yeah.
It takes away all the numbers.
Souls light, as it were.
Totally.
Yeah. That main mechanic that you see keep happening, harden. So instead of like a dedicated block button, that is your block.
Oh.
You have that little round circle at the left of your health and stamina bar. It's glowing right now, which means I have a hardened ability up. But really at any time, I can hold that down, turn the stone, and the next attack bounces off of me. Which gives me, it's like iframes on demand, if you will.
That's cool.
It's probably stronger than iframes because they exist in this game, but these are not just iframes, they're like real blocks. So if someone hits you, depending on the creature, like the size of the creature and the weight of the attack, you can actually stagger someone just by like letting them hit you. Where it's unique and useful is like right in the middle of the attack right there. While I'm swinging, I can harden. If I know my attack's not going to stagger that person, they're just going to swing through it. If I harden, I'll get my attack off. They'll hit me, bounce off, and I'll get make an opening to hit another attack.
Very cool. Very different kind of guarding system than the Souls game.
Are you able to swap between weapons, like, or is there any
Yes.
equipment in this game besides the shield and the weapon you wield?
There is what's called the tarnished seal, which is on my back. That thing that keeps glowing. That looks kind of like an ankh. It allows you to counter and riposte. When you press L1 right at the right as an attack hits you, you throw the ankh up and it bounces you off, or bounces the attack off. Cool. Depending on if you have fervor, which if you see those two little dashes above my health line, it's like a little gray thing that's kind of slowly draining away. Fervor is a currency or a resource you gain by attacking. You can spend that fervor on a bunch of different things, including your weapon abilities. Each shell kind of has their own like active square ability, which is usually just a kick. But you can also spend that fervor on your riposte, depending on what you have, like what infusion they call you have equipped in your tarnished shield. Your riposte will do something different. That's me getting fucking whopped and killed.
So he broke through your harden there.
He broke through my harden. Well, it's more like I used the harden, he attacked, I didn't bounce him off, and I stayed too long thinking that I'd be able to get another hit in before I left, and he was not having it.
Got it.
The riposte can do more than just counter. If you have a resolve point and you riposte, you can equip your tarnished seal to gain more life back. You can equip it to light someone on fire, or to slow down time. It turns countering into like a really, really big, like valuable resource, and it's really cool. I don't think I do any countering in this video, but I know towards the end of the game, there's a lot of things that you kind of need to get good at countering. That anvil is where you upgrade weapons and stuff. That lady I just passed with the mask, she is basically your bonfires. Every time you talk to her, you can spend what's called tar. That is the souls of this game, on upgrades for your character. Every character has, like a little character wheel of like very specific things they can do. Here's your items.
Wow.
So Teal specials has like very special Teal specific upgrades that I got with Tar usually revolve around him being able to poison enemies after killing them, or after, like, if I kill a small enemy, the next attack I do will poison the next one. He can actually gain life from poison instead of losing it. He is very cool and very useful. There are other characters. Haro, who is like a main normal knight dude. He can gain stamina while in his harden. He's very focused around like being the most efficient sort of hardener possible. So there are very distinct play styles when you decide to choose a shell. Any shell can wield any weapon. It does seem like some shells seem more paired for particular weapons than others. Like the mace is really, which is the weapon he's holding right now. The mace is not necessarily a weapon you would get the most out of Teal's agility with. He would more want what's called a hammer and chisel, which is like literally a hammer and a chisel, like as if you're going to inscript on stone. He just uses it to stab and beat people.
That's really cool.
That's sweet.
But it's like two-handed weapons, like very fast attacking and flurry without a whole lot of breaking. He has so much stamina that he can make the most out of that. I just happened to, at this point in the game, made my smoldering mace like super duper tough. So it was my strongest weapon, so I went all in with that.
So this architecture going on here, we got like a whole bunch of black rock. It looks like the black rock quarry from Control, man.
This particular level gets nuts because I started out not really being into it because there's a lot of open spaces and it just seemed like flat black rock that was, it looked interesting, but it amounted to nothing, level design wise.
Yeah.
As you go deeper, it gets like hard, like really Control. Like the higher up you go into this like obsidian temple, I think they call it, or something.
Cool.
things literally like the floor is like being lifted and things are starting to twist out into like madness, like kind of like parts of Control,
Very cool.
where the walls are spiraling and you have to like kind of run up the ceiling and stuff. There's a whole lot of that at the end of this particular level. So this goes from like a kind of bland like dark castle thing to something really like bizarre and neat. It's maybe the most interesting level of the game. I would say the rest of the levels are kind of just whatever, including the one hub world, which is the Fulgrim like outskirts and forest swamp area. It looks a whole lot like Blighttown.
Yeah. There's always a Blighttown.
There's always a Blighttown. There's always a man. There's always a Blighttown. But in that hub is a tower where you basically operate out of. And the entire sort of premise is that there are 3 zones attached to this hub world. You have to go into these zones, get what's called like a gland, which is like literally some sort of beating pulsing organ from like giant creepy creatures, and bring it back to something that's chained up in the tower that's definitely not good, but you're going to do it anyway, I guess, because you have no reason, you have no option not to.
Yeah.
So it's a pretty small scope in that sense. Like it's very much a Zelda game in that way. And there's like, sprawling, exploring and stuff, but I would never say it's at the sort of the level of the Dark Soulsy kind of exploration that you can like literally go into areas, especially in 2 and 3, that like have nothing to do with anything, but they're in completely fully fleshed out sort of zones with like several bosses in it. That is not the case in Mortal Shell.
Essentials only, please.
For the most part, and like some of these levels may sort of sprawl. There's definitely secrets to find in most of these places, usually revolving around like the extra weapon stuff you can use to upgrade your weapons and do more special attacks with them.
How many different weapons did you get or find on your playthrough?
I found 4. There's a 5th that I know exists. That's a ranged weapon, and I know how to get it. I just don't have enough tar to buy the stuff I need. Which sucks, because at the point I'm at, I would be surprised that there'd be more to this game than where I'm at. I'm at what I have to assume is the last boss. And I can't imagine needing to like farm so much to get this thing and think it would change anything I'm doing right now.
Sure.
Which is kind of like a downside I've found now that I'm at the end game. I have maxed out 2 of my shells and have gotten nowhere even close to started really as far as progressing the other 2, but I'm at the end of the game, and like really I would just be doing so to farm.
Sure. Just
to figure it out, just to see what's up, and I don't know that I'm that motivated to do that.
Yeah, so it seems more geared toward like you have to kind of min-max a little bit. You have to.
Yeah, you got to make your choices early and then stick with them, basically. Which is fine by me. I'm not necessarily a completionist when it comes to that. But, as I was reading some of the abilities for some of the other stuff I hadn't really like invested in, I was kind of disappointed that I don't really have an incentive to do so.
Yeah.
Unless there's like a New Game Plus, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I mean that's a big factor too, because New Game Plus obviously a really big part of Souls and the Souls like so.
That would be the motivation I would need to go back through and maybe find some of the extra stuff I've definitely like left on the table somewhere, and maybe further explore the passive upgrades of the 2 other shells. I'm playing right now. This is this is Harren. He's the like first shell you meet, like the normal night guy. You can see his
Mortal Shell.
Yeah, if you will. Which is funny because there is a Ken of Mortal Shell too. I think his name is Eridim or something. He's very similar, except he does like kind of the opposite. But you'll see that his
kicks
health
instead
and
of
stamina
punches.
are like balanced, and he kind of his dash doesn't go too fast. He can dash roll, but he can also kind of just do a short hop. When he does hop, he can harden during the hop, so you can make yourself invulnerable that way and get kind of free harden procs if you're any good, which I'm not. but it's there.
That's this. I mean, so this substantially feels different than I guess what I thought. It kind of the thing is like looking at it, it definitely does have that look.
It looks the same, but it's the look. This game's look does not do it justice.
Yeah.
Whereas the Surge looks different enough for you to be like interested to see how it's different. I feel like this could easily be mistaken as a Dark Souls clone in a bad way, and I think you do yourself a huge disservice if you're a Souls fan to not at least play this game, because it will feel far different than any Souls game you've played almost immediately. I found that, I gotta say, maybe I would say 20 hours in, maybe, if that, honestly probably 15, that every single thing I run into, I'm still worried about it killing me every single time, because I don't get stronger. My attacks don't hurt more, because there is no statistical element in that way. So everything that they can do to me, they can always do to me, and everything I can do to them, I can almost always do to them. The only thing that levels up is like my knowledge of how they attack and my confidence in like really getting in there and knowing how to dance in between their cooldowns or whatever. It reminds me of like Fury in that way, where Fury, you had like, the same 2 or 3 attacks the entire game, but the bosses got harder and harder, and it's really just about you being, better at the stuff that you've always had. Which is like the exact opposite of something like Sekiro, where like you get buck wild things that change the entire game like almost every couple hours.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And it's I mean, like, I'm even just sitting here watching, there's no health bars for enemies, I guess.
That little circle that shows up when I hit them is their health bar. So you see a little red circle like right under the number.
Yeah, it's hard to see through the stream.
That's why I kept the numbers on, because it helped me see that.
Yeah, totally.
Otherwise, it would just blend into the targeting reticule.
Yeah. It's a clever idea to put it there, but yeah, it's a little hard to see.
It also makes, health and damage numbers feel even less important, because like I can't even see it, so I'll just swing to you're dead, I guess.
Yeah. Is it so? I mean, like, does it feel like a substantial change? Like, how would you say they did succeeding kind of varying on that formula as a whole package?
I think, it's sort of razor focus on what it is and like really nothing more is actually what really helps this game sort of thrive in that way. The fact that it's kind of short and straightforward means it doesn't overstay its welcome. Like, I'm at the end and wish I had more time to do some other shit, but I realized like what I'd be doing would just be running around farming for ungodly amounts of hours, and that just so I can see what other things do, and that's really not the kind of game I want to play right now. But up until that point, I'm ready for the next thing, and barring 1 or 2 bosses that I found to be like super frustrating, and probably because there was some sort of, I don't know, trick I was missing. I found every fight felt winnable, even when I'm at death like 4 or 5 and I don't get it, or I'm just like missing or something. It never felt cheap, with the exception of the boss in this actual place. At the top of this is a boss that like starts off weird, and I don't know if I'm missing something or not, and it took me a while to get over that.
Sure.
And I guess, and this game is priced like a game that kind of understands this. It's a $30 game.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
I think it's also there's parts of it that are that still feel a little bit rough, and I don't know that it's like should spend more time in polish it and be better, or more like they made this game, they didn't know that some of these interactions were just going to work this way. There's a kick in this game. Sometimes when you kick things, they knock them over. On particular monsters, if you knock them over and attack them, they'll stand back up, which like completely negates the purpose of knocking them over in the first place.
Yeah.
Oh, this is where I get jumped by ghosts.
Oh shit. It's not a Souls game until you've been jumped by ghosts.
It's true.
I I ain't
So-
afraid of no ghost.
I found that to be like kind of frustrating. You never know when you'll find like a weird hitchy thing like that.
Yeah. So they like just kind of like pop back up. I assume.
Literally, like you kick them and they'll roll down on the ground and do their whole like, oh no, I fell over. What shall I
I've fallen and
do?
can't
Animation.
get up. Yeah.
And then you hit them once and they stand immediately back up and are already in the middle of their next attack. And I'm like, well, okay.
Yeah. That's
Now, as you
awkward.
later in the game, I haven't found a whole lot of that, but like early in the game, like right after I got the kick, that first little zone I was in, it was happening all the time. I'm like, well, what the fuck's the purpose of this kick? Besides looking cool, I guess. But as I used it, I realized it's just a weird, bug probably. But yeah, I like the most compelling part is like how the weapons are very Bloodborne-y in my opinion. They don't transform, but they're very much super unique and they all have a purpose. And like I would much rather have like 3 weapons that have, or 4 in this case, that have like super specific sort of purposes than 8 that could be interchanged.
Yeah, I don't know. How's the music?
It's fine.
Sure. A lot
It's
of
definitely
singing
like gothic
groups.
singing,
Yeah.
Latin choir, whatever.
Yeah. Hey,
Gothic humming.
it used to be cool,
There's
Yeah.
no multiplayer in this, correct? Like a
No,
Soul?
this is straight up
Yeah.
single player.
Huh?
Which the funny, it bugs me. There's a kick.
I've fallen and can't get up.
It bugs me that Souls likes do this when there's no multiplayer. Like there's the pause screen is not a pause screen, like a real pause screen. And it's like, well, if there's no one else here, then I don't understand why I can't just pause.
If From Software will let you pause Sekiro, then y'all gotta
Yeah, you
get
gotta
it
stop
together.
this.
Come on.
And like the normal options pause, you can see that things are still working around you. But when you go in your item menu, you're completely removed from the game basically, but everything is still happening around you. So like you're just in your items chilling, and then you can just get killed by whatever around you
There
if
goes
you didn't see something.
Dead Space ruining all video
Yeah.
games again.
But the difference is, at least in Dead Space, your item menu didn't take you like off of that screen. Like
Yeah,
you were
yeah.
still playing the game. You just were staring at your items in your helmet.
Yeah.
So you could, potentially see some creepy crawly thing coming out of a vent to jump into your face. Here, you're just like
Getting jumped by ghosts.
whisked away to like this, very large tiled screen, and then, something's punching you in the face. You never see it. And that's just like
What's the scripture of Ardor? Is that like a consumable? Is it kind
it's
of
consumable. So you'll see that there's a scripture of order. That red thing is like the scripture of punishment in the bottom
Mhm.
red. When you use these, basically it gives your riposte an extra ability.
Okay. Interesting.
There are items called like medallions or coins that you use that'll give your harden an extra ability. So like if I use the medallion of mortality, when I harden and someone hits me, I'll gain health from that hit. There's one that is the spectral medallion. If I use it and get a hit during my harden, my next attack after that will do more damage. So combining these like passive consumables with all of these other abilities can really, put the pressure on someone.
Mm-hmm.
Man, it's
I
just,
found that that sucks.
Yeah, it sucks.
Just kidding. There's other cool so the thing about items themselves, they all have what's called familiarity, which is those diamonds on the bottom of these descriptions. The more you use an item, the more familiar you are with them. With some items, that means that the effects that they do will change over time.
Whoa.
So there's an item, the tad spore, which is just a mushroom that you find that heals you. The more familiar you are with it, the more it'll heal you.
That's really cool.
The loot, the effectiveness of the loot doesn't change, but the song you play will change. You'll get better at playing the loot the more familiar you are with it. Some items that have negative drawbacks, like inferior moonshine, gives you resolve but takes away health. When you're fully familiar with it, it no longer takes away health.
Whoa.
There's a mushroom that poisons you, but when you're fully familiar with it, it no longer poisons you. It actually makes you immune to poison.
That's
So
really cool.
That's really cool.
That's
using
like
these items actually you're encouraged to use them as often as possible because you get new abilities for doing so.
That's something that like really marries itself to like a Souls system, I think, super well. Because like
And it marries itself to like an aggressive play style, which is like this whole game seems to be sort of zoning around. Like you should be using and spending all your resources to get busy. Cause
I mean, honestly, I wish like more games just did like any RPG or adventure where you're like, I've learned more about this, and so I can use its properties better. Like I think that's just a cool idea.
And some of these things aren't even necessarily like significant, but it's just cool that they exist. There's one, Tainted Nectar, which nectar are tainted tar. Tar is, you get, tar items that will give you tar as a resource in the same way that like all these Souls likes have, resource gaining items. In fact, the thing I have selected right there is one of them. There's one of these tar items that instead of actually giving you tar, it just removes you from your shell, just kicks you out of your shell. But when you are fully familiar with it, it will give you 1 tar and kick you out of your shell.
Oh, okay.
It seems useless, but actually, as I found like literally today, there's actually lots of ways to exploit getting kicked out of your shell suddenly. Like it's a really easy way to avoid an attack. Also, when you pick your shell back up, you gain full life again, so it's an easy way to heal yourself. But you put yourself at risk because you have like a super mini micro health bar. When you're out of your shell, you're super vulnerable.
Yeah.
Now, when you use something like that, you pick to be kicked out of your shell, does that negate or does that use up your one use of being kicked out? Okay.
You have to be like killed, like kicked out the hard way, basically.
Ooh, okay. That's interesting.
So you can kind of exploit removing yourself and jumping back in with that item.
Full heal, yeah.
It seemed useless until like today, and I was like, this is actually not useless.
Yeah, that's actually really interesting. What a great risk reward.
There's there's a couple items like that in this game that I'm like, I didn't give this a second look. Maybe I should have.
Yeah, it was honestly like Sekiro. Like I was very much in favor of let's use all the tools we got in the Souls games, and I feel like I've met a lot of people. Even with any RPG, there's just people that are like, I'm never going to use items or whatever. But I love any incentive because like with Sekiro, I just went over the edge of like, I'm going to use everything I've got because I need everything I've got to win. I love that you're kind of rewarded for using items over and over again and familiarizing yourself with it. Here's some Dark Souls shit.
Yeah. Let's tiptoe out and on a beam, I guess.
Yep. I assume there's no jump or anything.
Nope. There's a roll. You can also kick like when you get knocked out of your shell, if you fall off a cliff that way, you just die.
Yep. I'm not surprised.
No coming back. Which makes fighting on like narrow patches like really, really, really tough.
Yeah, because if you hit low health, you'll just get thrown off that thing, right?
Yep. If you're not facing, straight on the little narrow plank you're fighting on, then you will absolutely get jettisoned into the void.
That's cool. This is very different than what I thought.
Yeah.
I mean, like,
I'm definitely more intrigued after watching and hearing you kind of describe it.
Yeah, I mean the visual, I think that style just does have a lot of baggage with it, and then so you kind of have a lot of assumptions with it. For point of reference, what are you playing on?
PS4 Pro.
Okay. What's the actual frame rate on this? Because we can't really tell over the stream.
This is 30.
Okay.
Of the video, of the playback.
In game, is it 60?
In game, it's probably still 30.
Okay.
Which it is kind of a budget version of this, so it makes sense.
Sure.
There's an indie mode in the options I found today that just pixelates everything. I don't really know how useful it is.
Why games are doing this?
I just found it and I'm like, well, this is all right.
Last of Us did that recently too. They patched in like a bunch of different filters, and one of them's like a pixel art filter.
Did they?
Yep.
That's weird.
It's in the grounded update. Although they put in like this like cell shaded filter also that actually looks really cool. Yeah, that worked. Jarrett, that was fine.
This is me getting stuck on architecture.
Nice.
And not knowing what to do.
This is definitely happened to me in Bloodborne before.
That was fun. Really enjoyed that. Luckily, I had an item that takes me back to that masked lady.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a version of the item that costs you what's called glimpses, which is of the 2 resources on the bottom right of your screen. The one to the left is tar. The one to the right is glimpses. Glimpses are character specific, so you can't transfer glimpses between shells, and they are usually another resource required to upgrade individual abilities in them. If you want to remove all those glimpses and go back to Sister Ganesha, as she's called, you can use her broken mask. If you have a unbroken mask, you can do it for free. And I had an unbroken mask and did it for free. It felt good. But yeah, that is basically Mortal Shell. And still me just rolling on architecture.
That's the story of Mortal Shell. Well,
That's the story of Mortal Shell.
Rolling on architecture.
Thanks for showing it to us, Jarrett.
Yeah, I think if you are a Dark Souls fan and you find yourself curious about what Mortal Shell has to offer you, look no further. This is if you have $30, it's worth the try.
Sure. Yeah, it's a lot of cool ideas there. A lot more attempts to really like subvert what this new genre kind of is, and
it doesn't do
cool.
too much. It doesn't go too far. Like there's you can overdo attempting to not be like this thing you're trying to be like. Sometimes it's just important to embrace that you're trying to be like a thing, and just change a couple of little things.
Mm-hmm.
And this is like the thing that changed was combat.
Yeah.
And it was worth just focusing on that.
Yeah, it seems like it. It seems like they did a lot of cool stuff. This is out on Tuesday, right?
This is out on Tuesday.
Which is probably the day this is going to be up.
August 18th.
Yes. Yeah, this will probably be up either that day or the day after. So, PC, PS4, Xbox One.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
PC, but only in Epic Game Store, I believe. I don't know if it's on. I don't think it's on Steam.
Sure. Code was provided by PR for point of reference. Full disclosure. Anything else you want to say about it, Jarrett? Any other thoughts?
There'll be a written version of this. I don't know if it'll be a review or a feature. Maybe somewhere in between. As soon as I'm done this final boss.
Cool.
Not that I think it'll change my opinion much, but I feel like I should probably just finish it before I make any final judgments about it.
Sure. That is totally fair.
Wait.
And if you need more coaxing, there's an ice level.
Oh, well, yeah. There's no fire level, right?
Fuck yeah.
There's also a fire level.
God. And an ice level? Sign me up.
There's Blight Town. There's that Blackstone Quarry. And there's an ice and fire temple.
There's no, like, weird, wet, scaleless dragon or anything, right?
There's something called a wormfish. It's kind of goofy. To get new weapons, you have to fight a dude. But you get like teleported to like a different dimension to do so. It's like when the Beetleborgs went to the quarry to fight, and you're like, I don't know why we always go to the same quarry, but we're here, I guess. You go to a quarry, but it's not a quarry. It's just like a lake that you walk on, and the only way out after you go in is killing the dude, or when you die, you'll get the option for the wormfish to take you back, and it's just a giant like catfish thing that eats you.
Nice.
How do you get the different mortal shells? Is it through like these boss fights, or do you just kind of find them?
You find them. They are scattered amongst the like Blight Town hub forest thing. Once you go to the Fulgrim Tower, which is like your main base of operations, you don't start there. You have to find it first. I didn't find it until after the first temple I went through, which is just me not exploring enough, I guess. It'll show you. It'll give you like cutouts of the weapons you could possibly find, and like graves of where the bodies of these shells should be laying. And if you go select something that's not full there yet, it'll show you like visions, which will give you hints of where they are. they're literally just like bodies. You'll find like something in a corner somewhere. But it'll show you like where like places they were last seen or whatever.
Okay.
So it'll give you like if you're any familiar with the map at all, you can kind of like deduce where they are. Another feature, I guess, the game kind of plays in two waves, I guess. The first is going from the Fulgrim Forest to a temple to go get a gland from the creature bad guy at the end. The other was taking that gland and coming back. The world changes when you grab the gland. Sometimes the levels you're in change as well. Like things start to break and your paths out are no longer the same paths in. Many of the creatures change. Fulgrim Forest is kind of just like overtaken with like human-looking dudes who just look like they've had better days.
Relatable.
When you have a gland, a fog comes and they all turn into like ravenous, poisonous ghouls. So it has like a horror game element in that way because they just jump out of trees and shit and you can't even see them. Like they literally will just jump out at you and like pounce on you. Everything's very dark. There are way more of them just crawling around everywhere, and you kind of have to like find a safe way back to the tower from the back end of a temple. So the way in becomes like maybe a slow pace sort of exploration. The way out becomes like a race. Cool. So it's a really cool sort of pace change in that way.
Yeah, some Ori and the Blind Forest shit right there.
Mm-hmm.
That's cool. I'm excited I'm probably gonna check it out. And hopefully have some thoughts myself.
It's worth doing.
Should be cool. Looks cool.
Yeah, thanks for sharing, Jarrett.
No problem.
Thanks for watching, everybody. Don't forget to like and subscribe and all the goodness, and check out our other viewpoints.
Hit the bell.
Hit the bell.
That's the thing now. Gotta hit the bell.
Yeah, that's where all the YouTubers are getting their money, is when you ring that bell.
Oh, word.
That's what I hear.
Yeah, do that.
Ding ding.
But be good to each other. Check out Mortal Shell, I guess. Ding ding. Ring the bell.
Ding.